stands the first production Panther Ausf. D. Serial number 210001. 45 tons of angled steel, a long 75mm kilowatt K42 gun that can kill a Tu-34 at 1,500 meters, and sloped frontal armor 80mm thick at 55 degrees. To the engineers and officers crowded around it, this machine looks like the answer to every nightmare the Wehrmacht has suffered on the Eastern Front since the winter of 1941. Dr. Ferdinand Porsche is not here. His heavy Tiger design won a different competition, but Heinrich Niepkamp and the MAN team know they have created something revolutionary. The interleaved road wheels, the wide tracks, the powerful Maybach HL230 engine, all designed to match or surpass the Tu-34 that has humiliated German armor for 2 years. Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels arrives in person for the official unveiling. Cameras flash as he runs a gloved hand along the glacis plate and declares to the newsreels, "This is the tank that will restore German supremacy. The Panther will hunt the Russian Pax to extinction." In the Führer headquarters at Rassenburg, Adolf Hitler watches the same footage with mounting excitement. Ever since Stalingrad, he has been obsessed with wonder weapons that can reverse the tide. He has already delayed Operation Citadel, the great summer offensive to pinch off the Kursk salient, once, then twice. Now he delays it again. "We must have the Panther in numbers," he insists to his generals. Heinz Guderian, the father of Blitzkrieg and now Inspector General of Armored Troops, argues fiercely against further delay. He has seen the early prototypes break down repeatedly, final drives shearing after 150 kilometers, transmissions failing, engines overheating in the dust. "Give us time to fix the teething problems," the engineers beg. Hitler waves them away. "Time is the one thing the Russians are giving us in abundance. We will not waste it." By June, only 200 Panthers have been accepted for service. Many more sit in rail yards with mechanical faults. The original plan called for 500. Guderian warns that rushing unproven tanks into the largest armored battle in history is madness. Hitler replies with a single sentence that will haunt the Wehrmacht: "The Panther is my insurance policy against defeat." On the other side of the front, Soviet intelligence has been remarkably accurate. NKVD agents, aerial reconnaissance, and partisan reports all confirm the new German tank's existence, its approximate specifications, and the fact that production is lagging. Marshal Georgy Zhukov, coordinating the defense of the Kursk salient, reads the latest report and allows himself a thin smile. "Let them come with their new cat," he tells his staff. "We have prepared a very deep litter box." The Germans load their 200 Panthers onto trains bound for the front. Crews from elite units, Großdeutschland Division, 1st SS Leibstandard, 2nd SS Das Reich, receive rushed familiarization training. They are told the Panther is superior in every way: better gun, better armor, better optics. Morale soars. Young tank commanders write home boasting about the Invincibles machine they will soon take into battle. As the trains rumble east through the warm spring nights of 1943, no one in the German high command imagines that these 200 Panthers are heading not toward victory, but toward the largest tank graveyard the world has ever seen. The myth of the unbeatable Panther has been born. In 3 months, it will be buried under the burning wrecks of Prokhorovka. The first shells fall at exactly 3:30 on July 5, 1943. The northern face of the Kursk salient, held by General Konstantin Rokossovsky's Central Front, has been waiting for this moment for months. The ground has been turned into a fortress, 8 defensive belts stretching back 250 kilometers, minefields so dense that in some sectors there are 3,000 anti-tank mines per kilometer, and more than 300,000 Soviet troops dug in like ticks. You are a young lieutenant in the 307th Rifle Division, positioned in the second trench line near Ponary. The night is still dark when the horizon lights up with the German preparatory barrage, thousands of guns and Nebelwerfer rockets screaming overhead. The earth shakes so violently that dirt rains into your helmet. Then, as the barrage lifts, comes the low, ominous growl of engines through the lifting dust and smoke. The first silhouettes appear. At first you think they are Tigers, massive, terrifying, but these are different. Lower, sleeker, with a distinctive sloping front that catches the first pale rays of dawn. The lead tank, Turret number 432 from the Grossdeutschland division rolls forward confidently. Its commander, Oberleutnant Heinrich Kohler, stands half out of the cupola, scanning the Soviet lines with Zeiss optics that make everything crystal clear. Your anti-tank gunners, for men with a 45mm M1937 gun hidden in a camouflaged pit 600 meters away, open fire first. The crack of the gun is sharp, the tracer round streaks straight and true. It strikes the Panther's glacis plate dead center. For a heartbeat, everyone holds their breath, then the impossible happens, the shell ricochets upward in a shower of orange sparks, howling harmlessly into the sky. The Panther doesn't even slow. A second round, then a third, same result. The crew around the gun stares in stunned silence as the cat keeps coming, its long gun traversing toward them with mechanical calm. Kohler's gunner needs only one shot. The 75mm high-velocity round punches through the thin shield of the Soviet gun and the position erupts in flame and flying metal. For men gone in an instant, a word spreads along the line like wildfire: new tanks. Our guns can't touch them. Panic flickers, but Rokossovsky's preparation holds. Divisional 76mm ZS-3 guns, firing from concealed positions in pack fronts, concentrated anti-tank zones, open up next. Shell after shell hammers the advancing Panthers. One finds a track and immobilizes a tank, another hits the thin lower hull and brews it up in a spectacular fireball. But most shots glance off the sloped armor, leaving only silver scars. By 9 o'clock, the Germans have advanced 5 to 8 kilometers in places. Yet the cost is already telling. Of the 200 Panthers committed across the entire salient, dozens are already sidelined, many not by Soviet fire, but by their own mechanical frailty. Final drives overheat and shear, fuel pumps clog with dust, transmissions seize. Crews work frantically under fire with blowtorches and tow cables, trying to recover their wonder weapons. One Panther commander radios back in frustration: "We are losing more tanks to breakdowns than to the enemy." On the southern flank, General Walter Model's 9th Army presses hardest, but even here the advance bogs down in the minefields and prepared killing grounds. Soviet sappers, working at night for weeks, have laid over 500,000 mines. Panthers detonate them in chains, throwing tracks and leaving the beasts belly up and helpless. Back in your trench, the initial shock gives way to grim determination. You watch as a flight of Illinois II Sturmovik swoops low, their 23mm cannons and RS-82 rockets chewing into the stalled German columns. One Panther takes a direct rocket hit to the engine deck and erupts like a volcano. For the first time that morning, your men cheer. By evening on July 5, the Germans have gained ground, but nowhere near what they planned. The northern pincer is already blunted. Rokossovsky radios Zhukov: "They have thrown their new tanks at us. They are strong, but we are deeper." Far to the south, in hidden assembly areas behind the Voronezh front, Pavel Rotmistrov's 5th Guards Tank Army, over 850 T-34s and heavy tanks, begins its silent night march toward the Prokhorovka sector. The real storm is still coming. The myth of the invincible Panther has survived its first day, but only just. By the 10th of July, the German offensive on the southern face of the Kursk salient, spearheaded by General Hermann Hoth's 4th Panzer Army and the elite 2 SS Panzer Corps, has achieved what the northern attack could not: a dangerous penetration. The SS divisions Leibstandard, Das Reich, and Totenkopf, reinforced by the Grossdeutschland, have driven a wedge almost 35 kilometers deep toward the town of Prokhorovka. If they break through here, the entire salient can be encircled. The Panthers are at the tip of the spear. Their long guns and sloped armor allow them to engage Soviet T-34s and anti-tank guns from standoff distances, picking off defenders before the Russians can close to effective range. German radio traffic is full of confidence. SS Hauptsturmführer Rudolf von Ribbentrop, son of the foreign minister, commands a Panther platoon and reports destroying 11 T-34s in a single engagement without loss. Crews begin to believe their own propaganda: the Panther truly is invincible, but the cost is mounting. The rushed production shows its flaws every hour. Engines overheat in the July sun, throwing rods and seizing pistons. Final drives fail under the strain of high-speed advances across rough terrain. By July 10, more than half the original 200 Panthers are non-operational, some destroyed by mines or artillery, but most simply broken down. Recovery teams work around the clock, towing crippled cats rearward under constant air attack from Soviet Sturmovix. One Grossdeutschland mechanic writes in his diary, "We are fighting the Russians with one hand and our own machines with the other." On the Soviet side, Marshal Zhukov and General Nikolai Vatutin, commander of the Voronezh front, watch the German advance with growing concern. The third defensive belt has been pierced. If Prokhorovka falls, the road to Oboyan and Kursk city lies open. In a series of tense night conferences, they make the fateful decision: commit the steppe front strategic reserve early. The 5th Guards Tank Army under Lieutenant General Pavel Rotmistrov, 850 tanks, mostly T-34 divided by 76s with a leavening of heavier KV-1s and Su-122, 152 assault guns, will be thrown into a massive counterstroke. Rotmistrov, a veteran of Stalingrad with a reputation for bold aggression, receives his orders on July 10. He knows the numbers, his army against the cream of the German Panzer force, including the remaining operational Panthers and a large number of Tigers. He also knows the ground, rolling steppe around Prokhorovka, dotted with small hills, ravines, and collective farm fields, perfect for a head-on armored clash. In his command tent, lit by a single kerosene lamp, he pores over aerial photographs showing the German concentrations. The Panthers are clearly visible, their distinctive low silhouette and long barrels unmistakable. Rotmistrov's staff officers argue for caution. "We should wait for the Germans to overextend, then hit their flanks," one suggests. Rotmistrov shakes his head. "If we wait, they will be through to the open ground beyond Prokhorovka. There will be no flanks to hit, only our rear." He issues the order that will define the battle, the deliberate frontal assault at maximum speed to close the range and negate the Panthers' superior gun and armor. "We will overwhelm them with mass and momentum," he declares. Speed is our armor. Through the nights of July the 10th and 11th, the 5th Guards Tank Army executes one of the war's great hidden maneuvers. Under strict radio silence and blackout conditions, columns of T-34s rumble northwest along dusty roads and across fields, engines throttled low to minimize noise. Crews catnap in their turrets, drivers navigate by moonlight and white tape markers laid by guides. By dawn on July 12, over 800 tanks are concentrated in concealed assembly areas southwest of Prokhorovka, less than 10 kilometers from the German forward line. German reconnaissance aircraft spot some movement but misinterpret it as routine Soviet reinforcement. Hoth and Hauser believe they are on the verge of breakthrough. They order a final push for July 12, committing every available Panther and Tiger. Neither side yet realizes that the next day will see the largest single-tank battle in history, a clash so violent it will consume over 1,000 armored vehicles in hours and decide the outcome of Operation Citadel. The Panthers are poised for their moment of triumph. Instead, they are about to meet their apocalypse. 05-30, July 12, 1943. The area southwest of Prokhorovka. The morning is already hot, the air heavy with the smell of dry wheat and diesel exhaust. Hidden in ravines, orchards, and behind low hills, the tanks of Rotmistrov's 5th Guards Tank Army sit silent, over 850 machines packed so tightly that turrets almost touch. Crews have spent the night checking ammunition loads, tightening tracks, and scribbling last-minute letters home. No one sleeps. You are a tank commander in the 29th Tank Corps, sitting in the open hatch of your T-34-76. Your crew is typical: driver Sergeant Ivan Petrov, gunner Corporal Maria Oktyabrskaya, the widow who sold everything to buy this very tank, loader Private Sasha Volkov, and bow machine gunner young Private Kolyar. The radio crackles with final instructions from brigade, close to 500 meters or less. Speed is everything. Do not stop for anything. At exactly 8:30, a single green signal flare arcs high into the sky above Hill 252.2. That is the signal point. 850 engines roar to life as one. The ground shakes so violently that men in nearby infantry trenches are thrown off their feet. From concealed positions, 3 corps surge forward in waves, the 18th and 29th Tank Corps in the first echelon, the 5th Mechanized in the second. The formation is deliberately dense, tanks only 20 to 30 meters apart, to overwhelm German fire control and create a wall of steel that cannot be stopped from the German side. The sight is apocalyptic. SS observers on Hill 252.2 see a dust cloud rising like a tidal wave, and then the tanks themselves, hundreds upon hundreds of T-34s rolling toward them at 40 to 50 km per hour. Paul Hauser, commander of 2 SS Panzer Corps, radios frantically, massive enemy tank attack from the southwest. All available forces to the defensive line. The Panthers and Tigers of Leibstandard and Das Reich, about 200 operational heavy tanks in total, form a hasty firing line on the reverse slope. Their long guns open fire at 1,500 meters. The first rank of T-34s takes brutal punishment, dozens brew up in seconds, turrets blown sky high, crews bailing out into machine gun fire. But the distance closes relentlessly, 1,200 meters. 800. 500. 300. Now the Panther's advantage evaporates. At close range, the T-34's 76mm gun can penetrate the Panther's thinner side armor, 40 to 50 mm, while the German tanks struggle to depress their long barrels enough to hit the fast-moving, low-silhouette T-34s. Soviet tanks begin flanking, ramming, and firing point-blank. One T-34 deliberately rams a Panther in the tracks, immobilizing it so sappers can leap aboard with magnetic mines. Another crew bails out under fire, dragging their wounded commander, only to be cut down by coaxial milligram T-34s. The battlefield becomes a swirling melee. Visibility drops to yards in the dust and smoke. Tanks fire at shadows, sometimes hitting their own side. Ammunition cooks off in burning vehicles, sending secondary explosions rippling across the steppe. By 10 o'clock, over 400 tanks from both sides are already destroyed or disabled. The air reeks of burning rubber, cordite, and human flesh. Rotmistrov, forward in his command KV-1, directs the battle from a shell crater, voice hoarse over the radio, second echelon, left hook. Cut them off from their infantry. The maneuver partially succeeds. Elements of the 31st Tank Brigade burst through a gap and catch Großdeutschland Panthers in enfilade, knocking out dozens in minutes, yet the cost is staggering. By midday, the 5th Guards has lost nearly half its strength, over 400 tanks. German losses are lower in absolute numbers but proportionally devastating. Their elite SS Corps is reduced to a fraction of its fighting power, and the remaining Panthers are scattered or immobilized. The clash at Prokhorovka is not a single neat battle but a series of brutal, confused engagements stretching across a 10-kilometer front. It will go down in history as the largest tank battle ever fought in a single day. The Panthers have met their match, not in superior technology, but in sheer Soviet mass, courage, and willingness to accept horrific losses to stop the German advance. The myth is cracking. By early afternoon on July 12, the steppe around Prokhorovka has become a vision of hell that surpasses even the worst days of Stalingrad. The battlefield stretches for miles in every direction, carpeted with the blackened husks of over 700 tanks, Soviet and German intertwined in a grotesque metal graveyard. Thick black smoke rises in hundreds of columns, merging into a single pool that blots out the sun. The ground is littered with shattered tracks, discarded helmets, and the occasional motionless body of a crewman who never made it out of his burning machine. The intensity of the fighting begins to ebb around 2 p.m., not because either side has achieved a clean victory, but because both have simply run out of fresh units to throw into the furnace. Rotmistrov's 5th Guards tank army has been gutted. From its starting strength of approximately 850 tanks, fewer than 300 remain operational. Entire brigades have been reduced to handfuls of machines. The 29th Tank Corps alone has lost over 70% of its T-34s. Crews who survive sit stunned on their turrets or beside their damaged tanks, faces blackened with soot, eyes hollow from shock. Yet the German situation is, proportionally, even more catastrophic. The 2 SS Panzer Corps, once the pride of the Waffen-SS, has been mauled beyond recognition. Of the roughly 200 heavy tanks, Panthers and Tigers committed that morning, fewer than 60 are still capable of movement. The Panthers, in particular, have taken irreplaceable losses. Their mechanical fragility, already evident in the approach march, proves fatal in the chaos of close-quarters combat. Many are immobilized by track damage or engine failure and then finished off by Soviet infantry with Molotovs or magnetic mines. Others are brewed up by side shots from T-34s that have managed to work around the flanks. German commanders on the scene are reeling. Paul Hauser radios 4th Panzer Army headquarters with uncharacteristic urgency, enemy tank attack in unprecedented strength. Our panzer regiments heavily engaged. Immediate reinforcement required. But there are no meaningful reinforcements left. The Grossdeutschland division, fighting nearby, has also been bled white. General Walter Model, overseeing the entire northern wing of the Southern Pincer, receives the reports and makes the grim calculation: continuation of the offensive is no longer possible. In the late afternoon, Rotmistrov, his uniform torn, face streaked with sweat and dirt, walks the battlefield alone. He pauses beside a still smoldering Panther, its turret blown 10 meters away, and places a gloved hand on the warm, scarred glacis plate. The gesture is almost reverent, an acknowledgement of a worthy adversary. Nearby, Soviet infantry move among the wrecks, finishing off isolated German crews and recovering wounded comrades. The scale of destruction is staggering. In a single day, on a front barely 10 kilometers wide, more armored vehicles have been destroyed than in many entire campaigns. Soviet losses are undeniably heavier in absolute numbers, around 500 to 600 tanks destroyed or heavily damaged versus roughly 250 German. But the Red Army can replace machines. The factories beyond the Urals are already producing T-34s at a rate Hitler's strained industry cannot hope to match. Every Panther lost is a precision-crafted weapon that will take months to replace, if it can be replaced at all. The elite SS Panzer divisions have lost irreplaceable veteran crews and the psychological aura of invincibility that carried them from Kharkov to here.